Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Optimum Human Podcast. Today we're talking to David Nutt White. He's a CHEK Practitioner, holistic lifestyle coach, NLP Master Trainer, and fellow podcaster. Today we discuss food cravings, fat loss, hormones, lifestyle, the education system, and your ideal day. Let's get into the show.
Welcome to the Optimum Human Podcast, the show that interviews the world's top experts in fitness, nutrition, mindset, and beyond. Let's get into the show.
All right, I'd like to welcome you to the Optimum Human Podcast. Today we have David Nutt White on the line with us. So David, the first question we always ask everybody is kind of give us a rundown of your health, wellness, fitness, human journey in 2 minutes or less.
Thanks for having me, guys. I wasn't expecting David Nutt to pop up there. 2 minute rundown on my journey to health and fitness. Well, good question. I was, as a young fella, I wasn't the healthiest person in the world. I was affected by a lot of health conditions. I didn't really know what it was like to be healthy at all. Twice a week, from pretty much when I was born until the day I left school, really, I would get these crippling chronic migraines that basically they'd send me blind. I'd completely lose my vision. The worst agony that I can ever describe, basically. Not the best way to go through your childhood, I reckon. I only had like a 75% attendance record at school. Kind of threw me out a lot. Couldn't play sport because I was, exercise would set me off and give me a migraine. Couldn't eat most kinds of food. Funnily enough, all that kind of stuff went away when I was at my least healthy. So I kind of feel like there was a big genetic component to that. But really, it led me to the health world when I was that unhealthy and, I let my weight get away from me. Kind of expanded quite a lot that I finished school and I thought I wanted to be a business person. Like I always thought I wanted to sit behind a desk, in a corner office, having a secretary and all that kind of stuff. And I left school and I went to university to do that. Didn't like it at all. So I went to the health industry instead and I've never really turned back. I've tried to be a student of the game as much as possible. I think I'm actually a world record holder for longest time studying at university without ever getting a degree. Which is a dubious one, I think, because I can't seem to find the right university to teach me what it is that I'm after. But basically, I was really unwell and unhealthy and sick and overweight and depressed as a child. And it took me a long time to kind of get out of that. But glad to be here now talking about health and sharing the love.
Awesome, man. That's a very, very similar journey to mine, actually, but not talking about me. But
were you a migraine sufferer as well?
Not so much migraine, but definitely I had chronic ear infections and ear, nose, throat type of symptoms that I dealt with all throughout my childhood and until I began to take care of it myself in my adult life.
Yeah, it really messes with you, man. I mean, it's funny going through life and expecting to get sick at like any point of the day. You're just not being able to look forward and plan things and know, oh, well, I can't do this because it'll make me sick and I can't eat that because it'll make me sick. It's really an unpleasant way to live, really.
Yeah, it really is. So, where'd you go to university?
Well, I did a year of Bachelor of Commerce Accounting, and it was a double degree with what was the other part of the degree? Business Administration at Macquarie University in Sydney. As soon as I finished school, hated it, left straight away. I was a receptionist at a gym for a little while, like a couple months before I became a trainer, and then I went to another university called University of Technology in Sydney to do a degree called Human Movement. But at the same time, I was studying under a great teacher who both you boys know, Paul CHEK, and learning a lot from him, his faculty members. I did a lot of reading. I got really most of the things that I learned about health came from the books that I would buy off Amazon and the kind of online courses that I would do. And when I was at UTS studying human movement, I got so frustrated because I don't think most people kind of understand what the health and fitness world is like, but it's a really interesting industry where there's not always a huge amount of integrity. So I was doing this degree, and I'd been learning at the same time because I really, really wanted to become a very good personal trainer, like learning as hard as I could. I was going through this degree, and I got halfway through the last year, and I was thinking, I have not learned anything that's made me better at what it is that I'm doing right now. And this is meant to be a science degree about the way the body moves and how people are meant to exercise. And I literally learned nothing new. I mean, we did a lot of anatomy and all that kind of stuff. I remember there was one day where we went out on an oval and we did some like track testing, and we were in the lab one day doing like aerobic threshold testing. But I just got to the point where I thought, I'm paying all this money for this degree and I'm spending all this time here. This is silly. And here's how bad it is. This is what universities do to get young people into to their degrees. They'll make up degrees in things like sports administration or sports business or something like that. And I was sitting next to this guy who'd been a buddy of mine all the way through my degree. And I said to him, what do you want to do when you finish university, man? We're both enrolled in this degree that's called Bachelor of Human Movement. So it's a science degree. And I don't remember what he said, but he gave me some weird answer. And I said, "What? You're in the wrong degree, dude. What are you talking about?" And he said, no, my degree is Bachelor of Management in Leisure and Tourism. And I said,
what the hell?
Why are you in most of my classes then? So I said to this dude, write down all the subjects that you're doing right now. And I wrote like all the subjects that you've had to do to get through this, to do your degree. And I wrote down all the subjects that I had to do at the same time. And we compared them. And the difference was 1.5 semesters. So the kind of management business faculty degree of management in leisure and tourism and the science degree of human movement were almost identical. And there were so many stupid subjects that I was made to do that I just couldn't understand why I was doing them. And it really frustrated me. And I was 6 months away from finishing my degree. And I said, you know what? I'm not coming back here. There's literally no point in me getting a piece of paper that qualifies me to do the stuff that I'm already doing. This is pointless. So I quit that university in a rage. I was not pleased with them, and now I'm at a university it's a college. It's a small private college called Endeavour when I enrolled in my degree, it was called musculoskeletal therapy, which is like halfway between physiotherapy and osteopathy, and it's now called Bachelor of Myology. They changed the name and changed some of the subjects, but that's much better. I feel much more comfortable there.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I know for me, college, it didn't mesh well with me, and I know, since high school, I learned to hate learning, and once I finally, got tired of the college thing, I've learned more, through self-study than I ever did in all my years of formal education.
Yeah, and it's funny because even the stuff that they teach you in university is so archaic. Like I remember sitting at the back of a classroom, and my lecturer, a guy called Aaron, I was told he was brilliant, was talking about the science of exercise, and he was saying something about let's say you've always got to consider the safety aspect of things. So let's say you've got an old lady who's got sore hips and all that kind of stuff. Well, you wouldn't really want to be doing any squats or anything like that. You'd be much safer and it'd be much better for this kind of lady to put her on something like a leg press. And I'm sitting at the back of the room thinking, that is like, are you, sorry? What happens?
Right.
I mean, are we not going to train this lady to be able to get in and out of a chair or in and out of a car? Like,
I'm pretty sure she needs to go to the bathroom.
Yes. Like, what are you talking about? Why are we putting her on a leg press? I mean, she's not a bodybuilder. She needs to be able to squat. If she's got sore hips, she can't squat properly. Teach her how to squat. And that, for me, was just like, I realized, oh my God, the university kind of education system that I'm in is so far behind the stuff that I was able to get, just buying a $30 book and reading about the science of writing a program for someone, or, assessing someone's posture and someone's flexibility and someone's core control and, how they move and all that kind of stuff. I learned more about how the body works just by finding good books on Amazon and learning from people who've already been out there doing it than I did from going and paying a lot of money to a tertiary institution where everyone says, oh, you got to go and get a degree because you'll never get ahead and all that kind of stuff, and it just was garbage, really.
Yeah,
I'm calling you out, UTS. Your degree was silly.
Well, it's funny. I'm actually in a very similar situation. I'm thinking this is going to be my last year of university because everything I'm learning, like I'm enrolled in a double major in kinesiology and health sciences with psychology as my second major. And
Yep.
man, there is just, I've learned more in CHEK exercise coach than I have, throughout all of school.
Yeah.
So it just goes to show that it's unrealistic. It's just
Mm.
they're teaching you pretty much useless theory, stuff you can't apply. It's just they're taking your money, they're not giving you any sort of real world value. So I know your pain firsthand.
Which and it saddens me. I mean, even this morning I was talking to one of my clients who's got some health issues going on, and she's working with various people like an acupuncturist and an endocrinologist and an immunologist, and they all know that there's something wrong with her stomach, and they all say there's nothing that we can do. Nutrition's not really going to make a difference. She's telling me this is what all her people are saying, and I said, you just came back from, you were across the country, you had to go to a funeral, and you said you feel like crap because you've been over there eating pies and chips and all that kind of stuff because the people that you were staying with gave you that. You just told me that you made yourself worse, and you came home and you started eating your good food again, and you feel better. Like, should they not know this kind of stuff? You know instinctively that eating bread makes your skin break out and gives you joint pain. Why are these people saying that? And to give a caveat, I mean, there are some people out there, well, not some people. Not everyone who has a university degree is taught these old school kind of things. Like some of the most brilliant minds of health that I know have been to university, and they use that kind of stuff all the time. It's just you really got to find what specifically works for you. And I think that comes down to being a skeptic and not a cynic, and just really saying, like, honestly, genuinely, is this actually going to work? Does this make sense? If I try it, can I see how it will work? Is it getting results for me straight away? I think that's a really healthy mindset to have, to be a healthy skeptic.
Yeah, absolutely. I always, make sure I question everything, even my own beliefs. And I know when I have to change my own beliefs, it can be not only difficult but painful. But why don't you talk a little bit more about the mindset and being a skeptic versus a cynic?
Well, I don't think that we can ever really say there's one size fits all kind of prescription or treatment or way to achieve anything. There are some universal laws that everyone has to respect when it comes to, like, you have to sleep enough. I'm sorry, there's no, like, I don't care if people say, oh, you can do this trick and you can get away with having 4 hours sleep a night. Like, that's one of those golden rules that just you can't avoid. Everyone has got to drink water. Everyone has to do exercise. If you can do it once a day, then that's good. But when it comes to figuring out exactly what that should look like and how that's supposed to work for you, I think it really comes down to just trying to make yourself uncomfortable in figuring out what it is that you're supposed to be doing. Because if you're looking to improve any area of your life or become better in something that you do, you need to recognize that what you're doing right now isn't the best way of doing it, and you need to accept that fact and do something that is foreign to you. Because if you would just keep doing the same thing over and over and over and over and over again, then you're going to get the same result. So I think the people who can make themselves most uncomfortable and challenge themselves the most and ask the most questions, like really targeted questions about, do I genuinely think this is going to work? Okay, I do. Or do I really trust this person and I'm not quite sure what they're telling me? Is it worth me having a go at this? Yes, so I'll have a go at that. And you should try everything. I mean, when I was overweight, I tried cutting calories. I tried heaps of different things. And I found what works well for me. It wasn't the best kind of stuff I could be doing. I mean, I could tell you guys I was eating bread rolls with canned tuna like 3 times a day.
Hey, what's wrong with that?
Compared to what I had been eating, like, that was an improvement.
Right.
So I just tried it and it made me feel better. And it was really uncomfortable because I'll tell you how I used to eat. Every single day from when I started the last year of school until probably 6 months after I finished school, it's like an 18-month period here, I was probably drinking at least a liter of Coca-Cola every day. I would spend $12 at McDonald's every single day. Like, I can tell you what I would buy. I'd get a large cheeseburger meal. Coke would be my drink. I'd have 2 extra cheeseburgers. And then if I was quite hungry, I'd get an apple pie or a McFlurry or something like that. So just experimenting with this new kind of way of eating. Like, for me, I found that being trying to investigate why exactly I was eating the way I was and what was happening, I found that I would just let myself get so hungry that I didn't care about anything. I mean, if you'd told me If you eat McDonald's, then you're going to be overweight. Girls are never going to want to look at you, and you won't have any friends. I would allow myself to get so hungry that I just wouldn't care. Hunger was the only thing that I cared about there. So for me, I learned about myself that if I can eat before I allow myself to get that hungry, then it's a lot easier to challenge and face those cravings, which is not necessarily something that you'll find in a university book, but I had to learn that about myself. And it was just, being honest and saying, look, man, like, you're doing this all wrong. You can't let yourself get to the point where you're so starving that McDonald's is the quickest and easiest option. And it's, right next to where you go to work and study. So I just had to be honest with myself and not say, well, I'm doing things, the way I'm doing things right now is bad, but look for a way that would make me feel better, that would give me more in return for the challenge that it would take to actually go through with it. So, yeah.
Right on. Now, what's your current diet look like? Just out of curiosity, and for the listeners to kind of get an idea of what your daily routine and diet looks like.
Well, in comparison to where I used to be, so I'll tell you how I used to do it and where I'm at now in comparison. And it has taken me, like, how long has it been since I left school? 8 years or something like that to really get this right. I probably got it maybe, really got good at this maybe 2 years ago. But the way I used to eat, I'd wake up, giant coffee from Gloria Jeans. I don't know if you guys have that, but that's like Australian Starbucks. I'd have a huge coffee. I'd go to the library and I'd study, or because I was at school, or I would go to school. I would eat nothing until I was so hungry that I couldn't even speak, and then I'd go to McDonald's and just smash myself. And then I would go home and have something enormous, like a whole bowl of pasta, or a huge amount of roast potatoes, or something like that. And that was literally all I would eat. I'd have coffee in the morning, McDonald's, and then big gluten-y kind of starchy dessert. These days, for me, I don't eat anything that's not organic. I eat way more frequently than that. I never buy, or I hardly ever buy things that are kind of like pre-prepared. So basically everything I eat is like one ingredient. So apple, kale, turn those kinds of things into a smoothie instead of buying a pre-made smoothie. I would never buy, pre-made sauce or anything like that. I'd make it all myself. I don't know, that's a weird question to describe the way that I would eat. I'll run you through how I did it yesterday. So yesterday, woke up, and as I do every single day, I had brinner, which is dinner for breakfast, basically. So I made like a fish kind of stir-fry thing the previous night. Had a little bit of that the previous night, and I had most of that for breakfast. Then I had an avocado with, I think I had apple with that. And then I had my leftover fish for lunch. And then last night for dinner, I had... what did I have last night? Can't even remember. I think I had paleo type... I had paleo type burgers. So I just got like a beef... I made a beef patty, got some organic tomato sauce, put that on there, bit of cashew kind of turmeric mustardy sort of thing, a few pickles, bit of tomato on top. Basically just making it all myself rather than getting other people to do it, because you never know what they're going to put in there.
So it kind of sounds like you're sort of paleo-ish, more on a low-carb side. Would that be right?
No. See, this is another thing that I have. I mean, I like the paleo principles. You could look at what I eat and call it paleo. But one area where the paleo people kind of get it completely... Well, they don't get it completely wrong, but they miss out what's really happening is that if you're going to talk about the way that we used to eat, like, that's awesome. That is exactly how people should be thinking. So we didn't used to be able to drink soft drinks. We didn't used to be able to, buy pre-made sauces or any of that kind of stuff. We never really would have had, like, coffees or anything like that. That's just not the way that we used to eat. But did we all used to eat the same way? Like, if you really sit down and think about it, we didn't. So a really easy example is just the difference between the way that people are built. So some people are naturally brilliant at endurance type sports. Some people are naturally really strong and powerful and explosive. And a really easy comparison here would be most of the people who've ever won or who've won a gold medal or any kind of medal at the Olympics in the men's 100-meter sprint in the last 20 years come from somewhere in West Africa. And if you look at the winners of the Tour de France over the last 20 or 30 years, in fact, if you look at a Tour de France peloton over the last 20 or 30 years, the Tour de France obviously is like a hugely endurance-based sport. It's all white guys. You will never see someone in a Tour de France peloton who isn't white, and it's not because of racism or anything like that. It's just because white guys are really good at that, and we suck at sprinting really fast, whereas West African people don't. So let's take Belgium. More Tour de France cyclists have come out of Belgium than any other country except for France. Now, what did they used to eat when they were, or what was their traditional diet? Well, they would eat a lot of things like, really heavy meats. They'd make those disgusting sausages. They'd have like starchy vegetables like potatoes and all that kind of stuff. Like really heavy foods. Whereas if you compare that to someone who lived in West Africa, they didn't really have, that many animals running around that they could chase. They had lighter foods like yams. They would eat a lot of fruit and all that kind of stuff, which lends itself to becoming more explosive, whereas the heavier kinds of food lend itself to becoming a better endurance athlete. So if you put let's say a West African person on a paleo diet where you said, you know what, you can't eat fruit anymore. Well, you may have a study that says fruit causes your blood sugar to elevate too high and whatever, and that could work for a person from Belgium. But if you've got someone whose parents and his parents' parents and, he's got many generations before him of people who used to eat fruit and they did quite well on that, why are you telling him not to eat fruit?
Yep, it's a solid point. I mean, genetics are very strong and they dictate a lot about us. So that kind of gets into epigenetics and that whole conversation. Now, Brian, I just wanted to shift gears. Are you okay on me?
Please.
Yeah. So, shifting gears, I just want to see what your response would be. Let's say you're at a party, somebody asks you, what do you do? What's your answer?
Oh, man. I'm so glad you asked this question. I learn and invent ways to help people have a more pleasurable and meaningful experience with their life. I test it on myself first, and then if I find something that works, I share it with as many people as I possibly can.
Right on.
Love that answer.
Yeah, you're kind of like the Australian Tim Ferriss.
I really like that question because most people would answer it with their job, which I kind of just did, like, I'm an accountant or whatever, but are you really like just an accountant? Is that all that you do? Surely there's more to it than that.
No, for sure. And a lot of people are defined by their jobs, which I find in a way, I mean, yes, it's nice to find purpose, but only having that purpose with your job or what you own instead of what you do and how you help people and, how you contribute to the world is just, I find it's just not really enough. You know what I mean? It's not fulfilling enough.
Let me give you guys a little bit of food for thought here because this is something that I've been thinking a lot about over the last year. And I heard a concept from a brilliant marketer, and it was kind of reinforced by a book that I read not that long ago by a businessman as well. And it's this kind of concept of who we are at our core versus what we think we are at the surface. So you ask someone a question like, what do you do? And they answer, I'm an accountant or something like that. Or, I'm an athlete or I'm a trainer or something like that. And that's, kind of who we walk around with this perception of in our mind. And that's like really a surface level thing. So if you ask someone at the surface level, what do you really want? They may say, well, I want to lose weight or, or I want to earn more money or I want to live in this kind of house or I want to get this promotion or anything like that. But those are really surface desires that don't have any significance to us at all. They're kind of like goals. And I'm not saying that goals are bad. I think you should have them, but I don't think goals are the be all and end all. Because let's take a really easy example. I'll basically plagiarize this directly from this marketer who I love.
Can you name drop?
The Frank Kern, Dr. Frank Kern.
Gotcha.
What's his? He's got a fake title. I love it. He's what is it? Dr. Frank Kern, attorney at law, chief engineer at NASA, retired. This is his official fake title that he's given himself. But the example that he would give, a really easy one. Like pretty much everyone would like to have a Ferrari, right? We could all say that would be cool to have, and I think everyone should have one. I don't see any reason why not. But why do we really want a Ferrari? Or we could say, why does someone really want to lose weight? What's kind of behind that? So saying you want to lose weight or that you want to get a promotion or you want to have a fancy car or a fancy house is good. I mean, I don't see any reason why people can't achieve those, but that's not the reason why we really want that. I mean, let me ask you guys, what would be your dream car if you could have one?
Mine would be Tesla.
Right, Brian?
You know what? Well, that was Brian, but
Oh, sorry.
no worries.
You're a little bit garbled on this side.
Oh no. Well, hopefully Brian's copy's doing better than ours. But mine would also be a Tesla, just for the environmental purpose, and plus it looks pretty sweet also.
Right. So you said it looks pretty sweet. Is that, I mean, and it's totally okay to say yes to this, but would you like people to see you driving around in that car, or would you feel like you were a success if you could get a car like that, or would you feel like you were, able to have a nice car and not ruin the environment? Like, why do you actually want that car?
Well, that's a very good digging deep question, and part of it is yeah, image is always nice. Driving a nice car, it instills something in people's minds, like, oh, that person's successful, or they're doing something right. So that doesn't hurt. But the main thing is the environment. We're pretty much destroying this planet with fossil fuels, and some people will say we're not, but I'm pretty sure if you ever visit China, you'll change your mind pretty quickly. But yeah, it just for a multitude of purposes. But the main one being, it's a hybrid, and I support what Elon Musk is doing as a person, and I support his quest to save humanity from itself.
So you just said basically the car itself is pretty insignificant. It's the feeling of being able to get around without destroying the environment, or it may be the feeling that you get by owning a car that's that expensive that makes you feel like a success. Or if we were doing a weight loss example, it might not be, or someone might have a goal to lose 10 kilos, but behind that, at their core, they're thinking, I would really like to take my shirt off in front of my husband or wife, or I would really like to be as fit as I was when I was 20 and not feel like, I'm letting age kind of creep up on me, and my friends and family are noticing that I'm putting on weight, and I'd like people to look at me and think, wow, he's still in such good shape. So the weight loss by itself is pretty insignificant. There's something behind that, and that's an experience. So what we do is we have these kind of surface desires that we look for, like, a car or a house or money or a promotion, those kinds of things. If you strip away the experience that you have, or the experience that would give you, by itself, it's meaningless. So what I would encourage everyone to do is to really drill down into what that actual experience is that you're after, and who you genuinely are at the core. Because I think the real thing that every human being wants more than anything else is to create and continually have really pleasurable, meaningful experiences more than anything else. Like, the experience of losing weight and having your spouse say, you look really fantastic, you look better than you did when I met you, and I'm so proud of you for that, is so much more important than seeing a 10 kilos less the next time you step on the scales.
Yeah, I completely agree. That's an awesome answer. It's an awesome perspective, and I'm seeing that used more and more nowadays, especially in the fitness industry, in interviewing, and just trying to find people's reasons for their answers. It's like you said, the surface can usually be pretty insignificant, but if it's like, oh, you know what, I'm afraid of not being able to play with my grandkids because my dad had a heart attack or whatever, it's much better than, yeah, I want to lose 20 pounds. So it's you're spot on. It's heading in the right direction, and I think the more this gets out there, the more people will be able to use that as an anchor, you know what I mean, to kind of continue to use that for motivation.
Now,
hang on, sorry, sorry to interrupt you guys. Speaking of motivation, nothing motivates you like the chance to have a more pleasurable experience. So yes, we know that losing weight is good for you, and we know that it will make you feel better, like physically feel better, and it'll probably end up costing you less in medical bills later. But it's what that really does for you, and if you can identify with that changes people's behavior. So no one really changes their behavior because they want to physically weigh less, or because they want to actually have more money. People want to have those kinds of things because they want to make their experience more pleasurable. And if you're trying to figure out what it is that your core desire is at the most root level, what you're really after in life, then I would really strongly encourage everyone, because this question changed my life. Like, it genuinely did change my life, my behavior, how I act, how much stuff I get done over the course of a day. And that question is this, and this is a Frank Kern question. If there were no limitations or consequences at all, so if, assuming that what you're doing is safe and you're not wrestling alligators or anything like that, or, doing hard drugs all the time, but if money wasn't a factor, if time wasn't a factor, if you weren't weighed down by the current responsibilities that you had, what would you do on your average perfect day? If you had to live it over and over and over again without getting bored of it, without feeling like it was pointless, if you feel like you wanted to make a contribution to the world, how would you do that? And when you know the answer to that, everything changes. So for me, this took a really long time to figure out, like months. I've got my average perfect day written down. It's 7.5 pages long. Wow. And when I started doing that, I could see how, like, I didn't want anything else except for what was on this average perfect day. Nothing is more important to me than that. And how, what experiences I have, what kinds of things I think about, how I feel, what kinds of things I wouldn't talk about with people, what kind of people I wouldn't have around me, what kind of stuff I would never do, how I would never want to feel. It's really easy to see what it is that you're doing that's actually getting you closer towards that, and what it is that you're doing that's taking you further away from that. So for me, I don't ever want to get migraines again. And I can tell you right now that eating junk food, what would be some other triggers that I used to have? Anxiety was something that used to set me off for migraines. Way too much stress would set me off for migraines. I don't do that stuff anymore, ever. Because I don't want that experience. That's not an experience that I've chosen to have. And I can tell whenever I'm doing something if I'm going to get closer to or further away from that. I don't ever want to kind of drag myself through the day, so I won't go and do things like, go out for a couple of drinks with friends the day before I'm supposed to go to work and then drag myself through and think that it was all worth it. I would never do that because that's something that I've chosen to not do. And this, of course, this will be different for everyone, Health is something that's become really important to me because for such a long time I never had it. But if you can identify the experience that you want to have, nothing is more important than that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to kind of back up with the question previously, and if you're working with somebody and they don't really want to, or at least they're putting up initial resistance to diving deep like that, and really ask that question about what's the underlying desire that they have. Do you have a way that you kind of elicit a response?
I'll just ask them, what would you do on your average perfect day? And you know what people never come back and say? They never come back and say, oh, I would wake up and have a donut for breakfast, and then I would have 3 coffees. Like, people don't say unhealthy things when you ask them that question. People know that being healthy is a big part of that. And you can tell them, if you chose this experience of you want to wake up and you want to feel this particular way, you didn't mention gluten or soy milk or fast food. You didn't mention that. None of that stuff came up. So why are you doing it? And it kind of stops people. It's like, oh, what I'm doing right now isn't really contributing to what I really, really want at the core level. Mm-hmm. So I just straight up ask people that question.
Absolutely. And do you think there's ever the idea that like they can't actually achieve that? And I think that's why there's so much resistance to it.
Well, if someone said to me, if someone came across and they had massively huge goals, and I did say no limitations or consequences, I don't know if everyone listening to this can live in a giant mansion and never work. I don't think everyone listening to this would want that anyway, but I can't see any reason why people couldn't be able to achieve that. And even if you can't, if you can get closer, isn't that better than what you've got right now?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, that's fantastic stuff, man. So, you had mentioned, high amounts of stress had triggered your headaches. Now, obviously, or maybe not obviously to our listeners, but obviously to us, the 2 main stress hormones, adrenaline and cortisol. Can you kind of talk about that and describe how those would have created those headaches?
Well, I've done a lot of thinking about this. So my migraines went away when I got really fat, and my dad had migraines. My dad's auntie had migraines. I feel like there's a really strong genetic component to it, but at the same time as I got fat, I left school, and that's when my migraines disappeared. So I know that there were things like food intolerances that would set me off. Like I was intolerant to just about everything. I couldn't eat things like oranges. I couldn't eat any food colorings or any of that kind of stuff. I was on the most basic, boring diet you can imagine for years. Like I would eat white rice, pears, yogurt, apple, just like literally the like food that had no color to it, basically, because anything else, no one knew what was wrong with me. Every time I ate, I would get sick. And I remember the day that I got desensitized to chocolate. My mum bought me a 16-inch mud cake, and I hadn't eaten chocolate for like 5 years. I was probably 10. And I ate the whole thing, felt terrible afterwards, but no migraine. And that was the best experience I'd had in a really long time. So when it comes to stress, well, it's an interesting question. I was really stressed out by the fact that I had to be at school. Like I didn't feel like that was the right environment for me. And I don't feel like a lot of people do well in the school environment. Mm-hmm. I don't feel like a lot of people do well in the university environment as well. But, you know, I had massive social anxiety because I was different to everyone else. Like, I was the guy who always got sick. I was the guy who couldn't play sport because I would get sick. I was the guy who ate different food to everyone else because if I didn't, it would make me sick. I was the guy who was always catching up on his homework and, you know, classwork and always behind. And I was always different. And that alone stressed me out enough that I hated being at school just by the fact that I was different. And you know what happens when you're different at school. Like, it's not necessarily that people bully you and tease you and all that kind of stuff, but you're different. And that is a huge thing for your self-esteem. So stress-wise, that I feel had a significant contribution. And when you talk about cortisol and adrenaline, I wasn't even living anything like my average perfect day. If I was 12 years old and you asked me, what do you want to do today? I wouldn't have said I want to go to school. Right. And that was, I feel like that was one of the ways that I was getting a message from myself saying, this is not right. So we can all agree that if you go and eat something that is, you know, garbage, like if you were to go and eat a large cheeseburger meal with 2 extra cheeseburgers and a McFlurry, predictably, everyone who's listening to this will probably feel worse for the next couple of hours. Whereas conversely, if we could go and get something like, if it was possible to determine this, the exact right nutritional meal for you at this point in time, exact ratio of proteins and fats and carbohydrates and all the right micronutrients and the exact right amount of food and put it into a really healthy digestive system, we can say that the person who ate that meal would feel better. So the body's always telling you, whether you listen to it or not, in some particular way, yes, this is working, no, it's not. And things like cortisol and adrenaline are, you know, one of the tools that the body uses there. Like an easy example here, if like, let's say if I was in a room with you two guys and I put a snake around both of your necks, one of you may have had a snake as a pet. And that wouldn't be a particularly stressful thing for you to have a snake around your neck. You might hold it and, you know, give it a name or whatever, whereas the other one of you might have been chased by a snake when you were younger. And so the stress response that you would get there is your body telling you, this is not right, you have to get out of this situation. And it's the same thing that happens retrospectively when you go to work or when you eat food or when you exercise in a particular way or when you sleep or when you do or don't drink water. The body's just telling you, yes, this is good, keep doing more of this, and it'll make you feel better as that message. Or it'll say, this is not working, can we please change something? So hormones, I feel like, hormones like cortisol and adrenaline, they're basically messages from the body saying something's not going the way that we would like it to, you and me. Like mentally and physically, this is not something that we're doing well with.
Now, kind of piggybacking off of that, what's the number one hormonal issue you find with clients that you work with?
Well, I mostly work with women. I don't know why, but I've never really trained a lot of men. I can't really give a reason why that happens, but most statistically, I reckon like 80% of the people who have ever trained are women. So hormonally, I would say I'm gonna cheat here and give 3 answers. That's Number fine. 1, I would say people are caught up in the stress cycle. So we all do things that we know we shouldn't at some particular point in our lives, because at some level it gives us pleasure. So, going out and having an anniversary dinner and a couple of drinks with a loved one is a really good example. Like, you shouldn't be eating that way, but it really makes you feel good to go and have that special experience. Or it could be staying up late to watch your sport team play in the World Cup final or the final of their championship or whatever it might be. And that gives you a pleasurable experience. And if you don't know what it is that you actually genuinely want, then you'll look for pleasure anywhere that you can get it. So if you don't know what your average perfect day would look like if you could have it, then you'll do anything because you don't know what's good and what's bad. Just like if you'd never heard of nutrition before, you would eat anything because you wouldn't know that McDonald's is bad and kale is good. Like, you just wouldn't know. So that would be one example there. People just finding stressful situations that they take some kind of pleasure in, and doing that because it gratifies them in a way that they don't understand the consequences of. The second one would be not putting yourself first, which I think is a terrible shame. You can tell when you're around someone who's really confident and, gives to themselves first and foremost and isn't purely set up to serve others at the expense, of their own health. So I think with a lot of women and maybe for men, I think it might be a little bit different. I don't want to get into, gender roles here or anything like that, but people can do things that sacrifices their own health or their own wellness or their own mental happiness in the pursuit of what we think is a goal. So I want to have this amount of money, or I want to, I want to have this promotion, or I want to have this kind of car. And if it really challenges and stresses you out to get there, to do that like, let's say we've got a promotion. If someone's chasing after a promotion and they're working themselves to the bone to get it, they're teaching themselves that success in that area, let's say it's professionally, equates to not pleasure. So you get the promotion and you feel good, but physically, what have you done to yourself? You feel worse. You're tired all the time. You don't get enough time to do the things that you actually enjoy. You've looked at that job promotion, which I think, if you want it, I don't see any reason why you shouldn't have it. You've looked at that as like the number one thing instead of saying, what kind of experience do I want to have? So when you get that job promotion and you're the CEO or you're making this amount of money, how has that made your day better? Do you get to wake up and do what it is that you actually want to do when you're the CEO? Like, have you chosen what kind of people you would like to have around you on your average perfect day? Like, socially, for me, I had to get rid of a lot of people in my life when I really realized what kind of experience that I wanted to have. So I think chasing a goal without understanding what it is that you do on the process to get there and what it means when you arrive would be the second one. And the third one I would say is just not listening to the messages of your own body and understanding that everything that you do has a cause and effect. So you sleep enough, you feel better. You don't sleep enough, you feel worse. You drink enough water, and in some way the body's going to make you feel good, or it's going to take away a symptom of dehydration, which will change from person to person. You eat well and your body will make you feel better. You eat badly and your body will make you feel worse. You exercise too much and your body will make you feel worse. Not knowing the cause and effect there throws people out as well. And when you ask about hormones are they're secondary to all this kind of stuff. Like, you can do all the, lab testing and all that kind of stuff in the world that you want to, but if you hate what you do every day, your hormones are going to respond to that. It's like carrying around a snake in your pocket. Hormonally, you're going to respond to that. Or carrying a snake around your neck. Or having a spider in your pocket or something like that. If it stresses you out that much, hormonally, your body's going to respond. And, the science of it is there, and people can go and read about it if they want to, but hormones are just they're a way of physicalizing what's happening with your experience, I think.
Yeah, they're kind of like messengers, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
They're not even messengers, they're just responders, I think.
Right.
So I gave you an example before. Let's say you two are sitting in a room and I wrap a snake around both your necks. Hormonally, one of you is going to respond to that.
Yeah, that would be me.
One of you's not. If one of you likes snakes and one of you got chased by one and was scared of them, hormonally you're going to respond to that. So it's a physical message in response to something that's happening in the non-physical body.
Right on, right on. I love all your examples with spiders and snakes. They're very Australian examples.
Well, everything in Australia tries to kill you all the time. All the time. You know what I was doing this time last week? I was in a dog fight. My dog got bitten by this giant Alsatian, and I had to punch it in the face to get it off my
What?
dog. Yeah, it's mental.
No way. Was it just like a runaway, or did you
No,
have
no,
like?
no. Every time we walk past this dog's house, he barks, and my dog barks back at him, and I tell him to get stuffed because he's a rude dog, and he chases us around and barks at us. And this day he got out of his gate, and we were like 20 meters past, or 60 yards past his house, and he chased after us. I didn't hear him because I was listening to a podcast, and he grabbed my dog and just started shaking it around because my dog's not massive. And I ran over to him and yelled at him, pushed him. He wouldn't let go, so I had to punch him in the face to get him off my dog.
Jesus.
That is intense, dude.
Yeah.
It really is.
So-
For whatever reason, I have a picture of the Bushwhackers from WWF years ago.
Yeah, so we bred tough here in Australia.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, like I've heard about those. What are they called? The kangaroos that can knock people out.
Oh man, yeah. They look like the happiest little animal. They've got a nice little joey sticking out of their pouch, and they hop around and they look kind of silly. But if you get too close to one, it will stand on its own tail and kick you in the face. It's crazy.
Man. Note to self: don't go into the Australian wilderness.
Right.
Don't ever go in the Australian wilderness.
Oh man, that's awesome. So I think we're kind of reaching the tail end here. Now, Brian, I know you might have had some more questions. I sort of hijacked, like I tend to do. So do you have yeah, do you have some stuff? I got a couple more questions, but I'll wait my turn.
All right. So, again, kind of wrapping up, who would you want to hear on this podcast?
They're probably, I tried to study and read and learn as much as I can because that's something that I genuinely enjoy doing. Like, reading is something that I've done. I'm sitting in my room right now, and I've got 2 bookshelves full of all the books that I read as a kid. I reckon there's probably 250 books in each bookshelf. And it's just something that I've always loved doing. And when it came to studying, I found that some people kind of got some things, but I didn't agree with other things that they said. Some people were kind of on the right track, and it helped. I would try their stuff and it would help me out, but it wasn't the full and complete picture. And then some people, no matter what I tested of theirs, no matter what I tried, no matter how crazy I thought they were when they said certain things, it just worked every single time. And there's a handful. But on this particular show, I would have to say Paul CHEK, because if it wasn't for Paul CHEK, I'd probably be a very different person today. I would not be interested in health at all, I would think. Like what he's taught me about health has helped me help a lot of people and myself. Dr. John Demartini would be another one. He is absolutely brilliant. Tony Robbins would be a third. I would say Elliot Hulse would be a fourth. He is absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, he was a big influencer to me.
Yeah. He's an amazing man. Like, when you speak to him, it's just unbelievable. But then, people who if they said something that I disagreed with, I would have to change my mind and go with them, though they would be probably the 4.
Mm-hmm. Okay, awesome.
Right
I'll throw
on.
in Zig Ziglar as well, but unfortunately, he's not with us anymore.
Yes, absolutely. He's
I love Zig Ziglar.
an amazing man.
Yeah.
But,
Well, we might be able to get a psychic on and try and pull some funky
a
stuff.
medium, absolutely.
Yeah.
I know a couple of them.
Oh wow.
Actually, it's funny. It's funny that we're talking about Zig because I'm a reading person. I'm a very visual type learner. I cannot listen to people talk and learn from that. Like, I'll watch someone on a video if they're walking around on a stage or whatever, but if you take that video away from me, I'll last 30 seconds and then I'll be thinking about what I'll do tomorrow or what I should have for dinner. I was like, I just can't concentrate on it. Zig Ziglar, for me, is the only person who I can listen to without losing concentration.
Now, David, does that mean that you're not going to be subscribing to our podcast?
I will be subscribing to your podcast
You
because
just
it's
won't
a
be
little
listening.
I'm training myself to do it. I'm training myself to listen. It's not easy, but I do like listening to a lot of different podcasts, actually. I think podcasts are cool.
How does that go? That which you cannot do, you must do?
If you can't, you must. So I'm trying to do it. I know I'm not comfortable learning how to learn by listening, but I'm trying to get better at it.
All right.
Right on. And now,
So let me jump in here.
age before beauty.
Absolutely. So the optimum human, what in your opinion makes up the optimum human? Or another way to answer it would be give us a name of who you think is someone who is the optimum human.
I'm going to answer the question, and then as I'm saying, I'm going to think of someone who would be the optimum human.
Okay.
I think a person who does what they do, even though they don't necessarily need to, because it gives them so much joy and pleasure and meaning in their life, and they do it as hard as they possibly can every single day, because it's like it's the thing that gives them energy and that gives them drive and really makes them come alive. So an easy example, I'll steal a Zig Ziglar quote. I don't think he'll mind. He says, there are certain things that we all do that just give us energy, and it literally costs nothing for us to lift ourselves. Like, we don't need coffee, we don't need stimulants, we don't need to psych ourselves up to do those kinds of things. And an example he would give is, imagine you've had a massive day at work. Let's say you had a deadline the next night or the next morning, and you had a report to get done, and you were frantically running around. You were behind. You had to manage everyone in your team. You were answering to your boss who was yelling at you. You had to get into work really early. You skipped lunch. You didn't get to do anything that you enjoyed that day. It was just work to try and get the goal done. And you head home, and your roommate or your wife or your husband or your boyfriend or your girlfriend or whatever is there, and they're like, "Oh, how'd your day go?" And you say, "I'm wrecked. I just want to have a shower and go to bed. I don't even want to eat. Like, I'm done." And then your phone rings and you pick it up and you're like, "Hello," and it's one of your friends and he says, "Hey man, you want to go play golf? 9 holes?" And you're like, "Yeah, let's go play golf." Like, that would be an example there. Something like that just lifts you up so much that you don't even really need to think about it. So an optimum human, I would say, every single day, doing that thing over and over and over again that they enjoy so much and that gives them so much pleasure and a sense of meaning that they don't even really need to kind of try to do it. It's almost like an addiction to doing the thing that you love doing, and then allows themselves to recover from that as well. So I think it's important to work as hard as you possibly can, but also to rest as hard as you possibly can. So, I've done both sides of the coin. I've been incredibly lazy at certain points in my life and just kind of done nothing and destroyed relationships and destroyed my own chances to move forward, and, had opportunities pass me by because I was just lazy and addicted to doing stuff that would give me instant gratification because I didn't know what I wanted to do and where I wanted to be. And I've been on the other side as well, where I've worked so hard at something and just completely ignored my own needs. Like probably end of 2014, probably from November until February, when I did my first big online event, I was wrecked. Like, I would work 14, 15 hours a day. I would forget to eat. I'd be working in front of my computer at 7:30 at night, and I'd look at the clock and think, "Oh, I've got so much more stuff to do, and this has to get done before tomorrow. If I don't have a 20-minute nap right now at 7:30 at night, I'm not going to get all this done." So I'd be having a nap at 7:30 at night and working until like 11, waking up at 6 and going again, and that ruined me. So I think it's good to be able to work as hard as you possibly can, and I respect people who do that, but if you don't give back to yourself and rest as hard as you possibly can, then you're not an optimum human. You just can't be. You're meant to be every part of the body has an on and off cycle. We breathe in, there's a slight pause. We breathe out, slight pause. The heart contracts, slight pause. The heart relaxes, slight pause. Cortisol's released and then it's not released anymore, and melatonin gets released in its place, or insulin gets released and then it disappears and glucagon appears. Everything in the body has an on-off cycle, and you need to have that as well. So when you're on, be on, work as hard as you can. Don't look at your phone and distract yourself and text people or look at Facebook or anything like that. Do what it is that you really enjoy doing. And then when you're not working, give back to yourself so that you can go and do as much as you possibly can the next day.
Absolutely.
That's a very, very good answer. I think it might be one of the best ones we've gotten so far. Now,
thanks, guys.
Oh, well, I try to please. Plus,
I'm not, just as a caveat to all the listeners, I'm not making this kind of stuff up. Like, I learn about this kind of stuff and I read books by people like Brian Tracy and Tony Robbins and Zig Ziglar, and I just, those guys don't steer me wrong, so I just do what they say. Basically, this is not me inventing things here. It's just what I've learned from the best.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they're really good at their crafts. So,
Oh yeah,
to be able to even pull 10% of what these guys are channeling is quite a desirable thing. Now, I've got a couple more questions before we lead into our wrap up. But you've got an interesting nickname or middle name you put out there.
Nut.
Yes, Nut. So, like, what's the backstory there?
Well, I don't really remember exactly why it started, but I started working in a gym probably 7 years ago, and I was a trainer there. And I didn't really fit in with all the other trainers. I was very different to them because, I was used to being different. I was at school. I was different to other people. And one day, someone called me like, you're just nuts, man. You're completely nuts. And so people would just start calling me the Nut. And then someone decided that I look like Charlie Brown from the comic Peanuts, and then the nickname Peanut stuck, and then it got abbreviated to Nut. So I don't think I look anything like Charlie Brown, but allegedly I do. Someone gave me a Charlie Brown doll for Christmas, which is not funny, but it's next to my bed. So the nickname Nut has just stuck ever since I became a trainer. Like, everyone knows me as the Nut. I can't remember the last time someone in my gym called me David. It's weird.
Wow, that's a pretty cool way of getting afflicted with a certain nickname.
You know what I had to? This is because I was so used to being different when I walked into this gym. This is the kind of stuff that I would do. Like, there were, when you go to a gym and there are some people there, like, you as a new trainer, I think it's more intimidating going into a gym as a brand new trainer than it is going into a gym as someone who's never exercised before, because people are supposed to look at you as the expert. And when you're a brand new trainer, if you've just done a Cert 3 or a Cert 4 in fitness, you've got literally no idea what you're doing.
Right.
People come to you, they're like, oh, my neck hurts when I do this. And you're like, oh, that sucks.
Don't do that.
No idea what to do about that. Or, they'll come in and they'll say, my back hurts here. And you're like, oof, that sounds awful. Like, I don't know what to do about it. So I was in this gym, I'm completely clueless, and there are all these people around who just, they know what they're doing. They've been going to the gym for longer than I've been alive, and I thought, I'm just going to, because I'd been an anxious child as well, I thought, I'm just going to get the worst case scenario out of the way. I'm going to go up to the most attractive female I can possibly find, and I'm going to, I'm going to try and help her and see if I can, if she wants to some advice or some coaching or whatever it might be, and I'll get rejected by her, and then it can't possibly get any worse than that. So I did, and this lady was a fitness model. I got to interview her on my podcast. This was 8 years ago, or 7 or 8 years ago, I think, when this happened, and I got to interview her on my podcast last year, and I told her about this story, and she's like, oh my God, I never knew. But I went up to the most intimidating person in the gym. She's like 5'4", and she was doing chin-ups, and she was like on her 15th or 16th, and I'm kind of standing nearby like, all right, when she's finished this set, I'm going to go and talk to her and see if she wants some personal training. And she's doing these chin-ups, and I'm there like, oh my God, that is a lot of chin-ups for a woman to be doing. And so I went up to her afterwards and I said, oh, how's your training going or whatever? And she was so lovely. She was the nicest person, and we ended up training together for ages. So that was the kind of stuff that I would do, just put myself in the most terrifying situations I could. And that's kind of where the nickname the Nut arrived. That's an easy example I can come up with off the top of my head. But yeah.
Hey,
yes, it seems fitting.
Yeah, dude, that's actually an awesome story. It kind of shows that, good things often come, from outside of your comfort zone.
I tell you what as well, if anyone's listening to this and you've never been to a gym before and you're intimidated by the trainers or, the people who've been there the whole time, they don't even look at, like, no one looks at you when you're, and judges you when you're in the gym. Like, no one does. Trainers look at the way that other trainers are training people. People who've been going there for years look at themselves, or they look at other people who are about the same size as them and wonder if they're bigger or stronger than them. New trainers who are there, they may look at you funny, but that's just because they're terrified and they're trying to figure out if what you're doing is is good or bad. And if you've been at the gym for a little while and a new person looks at you, they're just trying to figure out, hey, what do I do next? So I can promise you, if you've never been to a gym before, no one's going to notice you.
Yeah, there's very little judgment going on unless you're doing something absolutely insane, like at least, if you're going to use machines, which I don't necessarily recommend for everyone, but like look at the diagrams and don't use the leg press with your forehead where you're supposed to be, just kind of basic stuff like that.
Yeah.
Better off not using leg press. But, now, just my final question before Brian asks you where we can find more about you and what you're working on right now. But books. What are your like 3 top books that either for training, health, just if you had to go to a desert island and you only had 3 books to read over and over again, what would they be?
So health-wise, the best book that I've ever read, which is it's almost too simple in its delivery, is How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy by Paul Chek. I think 90% of people can make a really significant improvement in their lives by just reading that book and shutting themselves up when they think this is stupid or this is not going to work. Like, there is so much science and wisdom behind the stuff that he's written in that book that you should just do it. And, that's what I do with all my clients, and it's worked from, people who want to lose weight to like literally just the stuff in that book. Sometimes I do a little bit more advanced stuff when people need it, but I can say, arthritis disappears when people go through the things that are in that book. Weight loss, depression. People, it's funny, people, their mood almost improves by accident when you just start eating better and exercising a little bit more. It's like all these kinds of things that you'd go to a gym to try and lose weight, and then just all these other things in your life just start getting better, like the way you feel about yourself, how you feel when you wake up in the morning, how your energy levels are. Like, just by accident, everything can change by becoming more healthy, and that book is literally about that. So that would be one. What were these books about? They were about health, right? That's what you wanted?
Well, I guess mainly health would be good, but even something like a Tony Robbins book or just something that you feel has kind of helped you become.
The 3 books you take on a desert island.
Right. I'd take The Values Factor by John D. Martini, which wouldn't actually help me on a desert island, but I like reading it. And if you want to achieve goals and get yourself ahead in your life, then you should be doing that. And then I'm going to throw an interesting one out for the last one, which again wouldn't help me on a desert island at all. But if you're not on a desert island and you have people around you and you're in relationships with them, this will help. The Truth by Neil Strauss.
Fantastic book. Oh, fantastic.
No, I've just read The Game. It's gotten me pretty far though.
Read The Truth, man. It is unbelievable. Like, I'll give, a disclaimer. It's pretty vulgar. It's written by a guy who was a dating coach. So he was this kind of scrawny dude who didn't know how to talk to girls, terrified of it. And, he was a writer who just wanted to have a girlfriend. So he went and paid someone to teach him how to do it. And then he paid someone else to teach him how to do it. And he made himself uncomfortable. He went out and spoke to girls to get himself rejected. He failed and he figured out what he did wrong and he tried things again. And then other people would notice that he was getting more successful at it. Like, it's an underground kind of dirty sort of industry. And if you're thinking it sounds odd, it is, but bear with me. And he made himself so uncomfortable that he had to improve. And then other people came and started asking him for advice, and it changed his life, and it changed the way he looked at people and the way that he related to women and all that kind of stuff. And he had all these kind of things and challenges that had popped up in his past that were affecting the way that he related with people. And The Truth is all about how his journey to becoming better at talking to women really brought up some of the issues that he had and some of the things that he needed to work through, and his mindset and the way that he went about it, improving himself. Like, Neil Strauss is one of the great self-improvement people, I think, in terms of results rather than teaching. But his book, The Truth, if you ever want to have a relationship with someone, or, you want to work with clients or with people, or if you've got a boss or employees or anything like that, please go and read that book.
Well, I'm going to have to check it out for sure.
It is a fantastic read. I had a really hard time putting that one down myself.
You know what? I was on holidays and I read it in 2 days. I didn't do anything. I just sat by the pool and read it.
Now, where do Australians go for holidays? Do they go to just like a different part of Australia, or do you go to like Alaska or something?
Um, well, it depends. So the kind of person who would come and pay a personal trainer is a specific type of demographic, especially the kind of person who would pay someone like me. So most of my clients are like, you know, retired, reasonably wealthy. You know, they're doing quite well in their life, and now that they don't have a job or anything like that to focus on anymore, they come to me and they learn how to focus on themselves. So they all go to Switzerland, or you know, they take their boats to and go on boating holidays, or they'll go to France or something like that. But for me, I'll be actually next week. I'll be in America. I'll be road tripping around California. I'll be at a conference with a buddy of mine. Actually, it'll start in exactly 1 week. Doing that for a couple of days, and then I'll be shooting off home. My next holiday, I really want to go to Switzerland. But I think Australians we get out of the country because Australia is so big. It's it's one of the biggest countries in the world. It's not quite as big as Russia, but you know, getting around it, if you want to drive around and see stuff, it's like, oh, you know, here's this thing, and it's 7 hours drive to go and look at the next thing. So you can't really travel around. Like you can hop through cities and stuff, but you know, most Australian cities are the same. I think a lot of Australians like to get out there and experience other kind of cultures and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure the danger of traveling with like the rabid koalas and other monsters out there kind of puts that thought of traveling kind of in the back of your head.
We play it up a little bit, but there's a lot of stuff that likes to kill people in the Australian outback. Not least the sun. God, the sun gets us.
Oh man, you're a great ambassador for Australia and promoting it. But yeah, California is awesome. If you've never been, like, have you been there before?
I have been. I went
love it,
there.
man.
I've been there twice. I went there. It was one of my mates won a trip to California, and instead of taking his girlfriend, he took me. So we went to LA for like 5 days. He won this radio competition, and he took me, and it was meant to be a couples thing, but where they're like getting massages together and going out to nice dinners together, and then we met up with a few more people and went to Vegas. So I went there once. I think that was 2012. I went there once as a kid. But I'm kind of, maybe you guys can help me out. I'm kind of really nervous about going to America because the only experiences that I've had of being there is that it's like, you're hungry? Well, we got pizza, we got burritos, we got Subway and Quiznos and Taco Bell and all that kind of stuff. And unless you kind of know what you're doing, the good food is like, you can't find it. What am I supposed to do when I get there?
Seek out your Whole Foods, and your backup is Chipotle.
Chipotle, gotcha.
Chipotle, and if things are really looking bleak for you, if you can find an In-N-Out burger, what you do is you just get it. They call it like the meat package or something. That doesn't sound right. But
if this is a joke and I go to an In-N-Out and say, "Can I have a meat package, please?" I'm coming to get you.
Oh no, but it's like if you ask them just for like a lettuce wrap, then
Okay.
that's or they call it like a protein pack or something. But you can get 4 burgers stacked on top of each other with just lettuce wrapped on top, and pickles or whatever. It's not organic, it's not GMO free, but it is one of the quick things I had when I was there last year, and it tastes really good. That's yeah,
I'll get
and
one of those.
yeah. So you got to try In-N-Out Burger. People are nuts for it. They line up for 2 hours to go to those burgers. And it's supposed to be a fast food joint, but it's not fast at all.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, it's
But
funny, I
Chipotle.
spent so many years training myself what it feels like how to feel like crap when I eat bad food that I would rather just, when I started recognizing what bad food was doing to me, I'd rather just not eat now. I'd rather not eat food than have bad food. That's the point I'm at.
Right. And I do know California is going to be a little better off for healthy food than the majority of the rest of the country. So
Yeah,
Perfect.
you can probably pull up on Google, and you just type in gluten-free restaurant and then the area that you're in. So let's say you're in Santa Monica, you type in gluten-free Santa Monica, it'll give you like 300 options. Like they're super healthy now. So I don't think you'll have a problem. I mean, I had these great gluten-free pizzas, and man, one of the best I've ever had. And all it was a Google search. So there's Wi-Fi everywhere, and put it to good use and find yourself some good grub.
I'll tell you what, if you were to Google gluten-free restaurant Sydney, those three words have never appeared together on any website. There are none of those here.
Fair enough.
That's like sad but funny at the same time. Oh
Yeah.
man. All right. So David, what are you working on right now, and where can people find out more about you?
So at the moment, I'm desperately, before I leave, trying to get my adrenal fatigue program done, which is basically addressing the kind of 4 areas where I think people can cause themselves to be stressed out, to wear themselves down, the things that we can do, or the things that we sometimes forget to do that are good for our health. And I like putting together systems and processes. So I also have another program, which is a weight loss program, and that's probably a little bit different to what everyone has seen out there in the weight loss industry. Like, I'm one of those people who, I think every time someone comes to see me with a particular complaint, even if it's weight loss over and over and over again, it's different for everyone. So the traditional approach to weight loss is diet and exercise. So some kind of exercise routine that's meant to make you sweat and whatever, and then some kind of restrictive diet, whether it's restricting bad food or restricting calories, which is, a bit of a myth, restricting alcohol, restricting gluten, or whatever it might be. But if you think about it, those aren't the only 2 reasons why someone might gain weight. And if you think about adrenal fatigue, not sleeping enough is not the only reason why someone might have adrenal fatigue. So what I do is help people figure out what's the root cause, what's most likely to cause you an issue. Like, let's say it's, your liver health. Your liver can make you gain weight, and if that's the case, then you need to be really strict with all those kinds of things. But if something like food and how much you eat doesn't really have much of an impact on your weight, then that's like, I would be in the same boat as you in that example. Then you don't really need to worry about that kind of stuff. Focus on the stuff that's in the that would be spoken about in the liver module. So you can get my weight loss program if you're interested. I'll put a link up, or I'll put an order page on High Energy. Did I say weight loss first? Yeah. They'll put my weight loss program at highenergyweightloss.com, and I'll put my adrenal fatigue program at adrenalrestoreblueprint.com. And I tell you what, I'll make everyone a promise. I know that all 3 of us are in an industry that's like completely full of hype and people making promises and not following through with them, and bad science and all that kind of stuff. I have my refund policy is give refund immediately, ask questions never. So if you try it and it doesn't work, just let me know. I haven't had that happen yet. I released my weight loss program and it went really well. And I said to people, try it, download everything, like get it all, put it all into place. And if it doesn't work, please let me know and I will give you back your money, because I don't think you should have to pay for it. No one contacted me. So
Always
if you
a
do
good
want to
sign.
if you do want to try my weight loss program, totally risk-free. Have a crack. If you don't like it, just let me know and I'll gladly give you back your money. And you can keep the whole thing as well. Same thing for the adrenal fatigue program. This is one of the things that I do to make myself uncomfortable. Like, if I get lazy, or not lazy, but, comfortable with what I'm doing, then I feel like the quality of my work kind of drops. So I keep myself accountable by making sure that, I don't get results for myself unless I get results for other people first.
Right on. That's an awesome approach. And now, do these come with a slimming belt, or is that extra?
Slimming belt. No, there's no physical stuff involved.
Oh
You're
man,
not getting anything shipped to you. Sorry.
I was about to sign up, but you just lost me, man.
Yeah.
Oh,
You mean one of those
my-
ones you
my
put on your
waist.
belly and it jiggles you around?
No, like a waist trainer, or
What's a
or what
waist
the-
trainer?
it's like a corset, except like it just essentially just pushes your organs away from your body. And people, especially females on Instagram, they're buying into this. And there's this other thing where they put like
Also
saran wrap.
restricts lumbar mobility, but
Oh, yeah.
nonetheless.
It's great for weightlifting.
So it's like
Actually, not
it's like a
even.
weight belt, but it's a corset. And
Yeah.
and
Well, yeah,
supposed to
it's a
push all your-
corset.
Right.
And it's supposed to make you slimmer, but it really doesn't. And also, there's another fad that people are putting like plastic wrap or saran wrap over their bellies, and they're sweating out the fat. So I'm glad
that's not the worst idea, but the you do a lot of detoxing through sweat, and fat cells usually are full of toxins and not full of fat. So that one, not totally idiotic, but if someone's selling a belt to people that does exactly the same job as one of the muscles that we've already got, they're either a brilliant marketer and or a total idiot, because 10 seconds you can get that exact same result by just learning how to use a muscle properly.
Combination of both, maybe.
Yeah,
it's true, and it's kind of like, trying to repair a flat tire while you're driving off a cliff. It's like not the best approach, but
yeah.
Anyway, what's your like Twitter, or are you on social media at all?
Not really. I don't get on there and post that much. I do run my own podcast where I interview the people.
Cut the podcast.
I interview. If you're interested in learning about or interested in hearing kind of the stuff that I've learned and who I follow and the wisdom of the people who I look up to, I interview someone at least once every 2 weeks on my podcast. It goes back like 2 years or whatever. So if there's anything that pops up there for you that you find of interest, then have a crack. I know that most of the people who listen to my podcast and most of the people who follow me are women, because I just, when I started trying to help people online, I thought, who are the people who I enjoy working with the most? And I kind of picked the, average client who I would love to train. If I had 30 of these clients exactly the same every single week, I'd be totally cool with that. So it's mostly kind of middle-aged women who are the listeners of my podcast. So if that's you, then there'll be something interesting there for you. If not, you may still find something of interest, but Brian and Claude are probably going to be better for you.
So what is your podcast called?
Authentic Wellness Radio. So if you just Google that on iTunes, all the stuff will come up.
Perfect.
And is that on your website? I don't know if you mentioned your main hub.
Yeah, my website is authenticwellnessmovement.com. So if you want to stay in touch with me there, head over. Check out the podcast. I've got a blog there that I don't actually blog on very often, but most of my work is podcasting.
Sweet.
Perfect.
Well, thank you very much for coming on the show and giving us your time and sharing your experience and information. And we really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been awesome, man.
Thanks for having me, guys. It's nice to be on this side of the microphone for once. I actually think it's a lot more stressful on being the interviewer than the interviewee. So it's nice to have a bit of a break. And hopefully everyone who's listening took something from this. I really do genuinely enjoy sharing this kind of stuff. And I wouldn't share it unless I believed it would work for everyone. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, maybe one day we'll be, top-notch people and we'll be able to get onto your podcast. But until then, you're just going to have to keep coming back on ours, and we're going to have to slowly drain you of all of your information.
Thanks, guys. I'd love to come back. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely, David. Thanks so much, man.
Thank you, man.
Cheers, guys.
All right, cheers.
Right.
Thanks for listening to the Optimum Human Podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please remember to head on over to iTunes and give a 5-star rating and review, which will help spread the word to more awesome listeners just like you. Head on over to theoptimumhuman.com and subscribe to the free newsletter and get the Optimum Human's Blueprint to the Optimum Life. Download it instantly. Thanks for listening.